What happens when the man who helped build one of the most powerful artificial intelligence organizations in the world turns around and sues it? That is exactly the situation unfolding right now in one of the most talked about legal battles in tech history. Elon Musk, co-founder turned fierce critic, is taking OpenAI to court in a case that goes far beyond personal grievances. On one side, you have Musk, the billionaire entrepreneur who once championed OpenAI's mission. On the other, OpenAI, the artificial intelligence powerhouse behind ChatGPT, now making a dramatic shift from a non-profit into a for-profit entity. This trial is making headlines not just because of the famous names involved, but because the questions it raises cut to the heart of how artificial intelligence should be developed, who controls it, and whether the promise of building AI for all of humanity can survive the pressure of billion-dollar ambitions. This one truly matters. To understand this legal battle, we need to go back to where it all began. In 2015, Elon Musk, Sam Altman, Greg Brockman, and several other prominent figures in the tech world came together to co-found OpenAI. Their mission was bold and idealistic, to ensure that artificial general intelligence would benefit all of humanity, not just a privileged few. OpenAI was deliberately structured as a non-profit. The founders believed that keeping AI development free from profit-driven motives was essential to keeping it safe and accessible. Musk himself pledged around $1 billion toward the organization, signaling his deep personal commitment to this vision. The founding principles emphasized transparency, open research, and a collaborative approach to AI development. There was a genuine belief among the founders that by working openly and without commercial pressure, they could steer one of humanity's most powerful technologies in a responsible direction. That shared dream is now at the center of a bitter legal dispute. Elon Musk's exit from OpenAI's board in 2018 marked the beginning of a very public and bitter falling out. While OpenAI cited a conflict of interest due to Musk's work at Tesla on autonomous systems, others suggested deeper disagreements over control and direction were the real driving force behind his departure. In the years that followed, Musk became one of OpenAI's loudest critics. He took to social media repeatedly, arguing that the organization had fundamentally betrayed its founding principles. His central concern was clear. OpenAI had transformed from a transparent, open-source research lab into something far more secretive and commercially driven. The tipping point, in Musk's view, was OpenAI's deepening partnership with Microsoft, which poured billions of dollars into the organization. Musk argued this relationship had effectively handed control of a supposedly public interest mission to a profit-driven tech giant, making the name OpenAI, in his words, a complete contradiction. Now let's get into the heart of Musk's legal argument, because this is where things get really specific. At the center of his lawsuit is a breach of contract claim. Musk alleges that OpenAI entered into a founding agreement, essentially a promise, that it would operate as a nonprofit and keep its research open to the public. By pivoting toward a for-profit structure and locking down its most powerful models, Musk argues OpenAI violated that foundational contract. But he goes further. Musk also accuses Sam Altman and other leaders of outright fraud, claiming they deliberately misled him about the organization's long-term intentions. According to Musk, he donated hundreds of millions of dollars based on assurances that OpenAI would never prioritize profit over its public mission. In his view, those assurances were false from the start, making this not just a business dispute, but a case of deliberate deception at the highest level. OpenAI and Sam Altman have pushed back firmly against Musk's allegations, arguing that the structural shift toward a for-profit model was not a betrayal, but a necessity. Developing frontier artificial intelligence requires billions of dollars in computing infrastructure, talent, and resources that a traditional nonprofit simply cannot sustain. Altman maintains that the mission of ensuring artificial intelligence benefits humanity remains the organization's North Star, and that generating revenue is simply the vehicle to get there. OpenAI has also gone on offense, filing counterclaims that paint a very different picture of Musk's motivations. According to OpenAI, Musk is not a principled whistleblower, but a calculated competitor using the courtroom as a weapon. The counterclaims allege that Musk launched this litigation strategically to slow down OpenAI while simultaneously accelerating his own artificial intelligence venture, xAI. In OpenAI's view, this is less about justice and more about eliminating a rival. As the trial has unfolded, the most compelling revelations have come not from courtroom arguments, but from the documents introduced as evidence. Internal emails and communications between OpenAI's leadership have surfaced, offering a rare window into the organization's private deliberations. Some of these exchanges reveal heated internal debates about how aggressively OpenAI should pursue commercialization, and whether doing so would compromise its founding mission. One particularly significant thread of emails reportedly shows senior figures discussing the tension between staying true to their nonprofit roots and securing the capital needed to remain competitive. For Musk's legal team, these documents serve as powerful ammunition, suggesting that OpenAI's leadership privately acknowledged the ideological shift even while publicly defending their mission. However, OpenAI's defense has used the same communications to argue that these debates reflect responsible governance, not betrayal. The evidence, it turns out, is a double-edged sword, complicating the narrative for both sides simultaneously. While Elon Musk's lawsuit is directed at OpenAI and Sam Altman, it inevitably pulls Microsoft into the spotlight. Microsoft has invested approximately $13 billion into OpenAI, making it the organization's most powerful financial backer. That level of investment raises serious questions about who truly controls OpenAI's direction. Musk's legal team argues that Microsoft's deep financial ties have fundamentally compromised OpenAI's independence, effectively steering a once idealistic nonprofit towards serving corporate interests. The partnership grants Microsoft exclusive access to OpenAI's most advanced models, integrating them across products like Azure, Copilot, and Office 365. What the trial reveals is a striking power imbalance. OpenAI increasingly depends on Microsoft's infrastructure and capital to operate at scale. Critics argue this dependency makes genuine nonprofit governance nearly impossible. For Musk, this relationship is central evidence of mission drift. If a single corporate investor holds this much influence, the argument goes, OpenAI can no longer credibly claim to be developing artificial intelligence purely for humanity's benefit. At the center of this trial lies one of the most consequential corporate restructurings in tech history. OpenAI has been working toward converting from its hybrid nonprofit capped profit structure into a fully for-profit public benefit corporation. The timeline has been aggressive, with leadership targeting completion sometime in 2025, backed by a staggering $157 billion valuation established during its 2024 funding round. This restructuring is not merely administrative. It determines who controls OpenAI, how profits are distributed, and whether the nonprofit board retains meaningful oversight. The transition would allow OpenAI to offer uncapped equity, making it far more attractive to institutional investors and future capital raises. However, Musk's ongoing litigation throws a significant wrench into these plans. Potential court injunctions could freeze or delay the restructuring entirely. Investors and partners are watching closely, as legal uncertainty directly clouds governance clarity, complicates due diligence, and puts billions in committed funding in a precarious holding pattern. The Musk lawsuit couldn't have come at a more critical time for OpenAI. With the company actively pursuing a path toward an initial public offering, the ongoing litigation introduces layers of uncertainty that Wall Street simply doesn't welcome. Investors considering backing OpenAI's public debut must now weigh not just the company's technological promise, but also the legal cloud hanging over its governance and foundational mission. Questions about whether OpenAI honored its original nonprofit commitments could raise red flags around fiduciary responsibility and corporate integrity. Reputational damage from a high-profile courtroom battle with one of tech's most prominent figures adds further pressure. Analysts suggest that unresolved litigation of this scale could meaningfully suppress IPO valuation or push the timeline further out. In an already intensely competitive artificial intelligence market where rivals like Anthropic and Google DeepMind are aggressively advancing, any delay or discount in OpenAI's public offering could have lasting strategic consequences for the company's long-term ambitions. This trial is far bigger than two tech billionaires settling a personal dispute. It is forcing the entire artificial intelligence industry to confront questions it has long avoided. Can a company genuinely pursue both profit and public good simultaneously? Is open source development a moral obligation or simply a strategic choice? These tensions have existed quietly beneath the surface of Silicon Valley for years, and this courtroom battle is dragging them into the open. Regulators and policymakers across the United States and Europe are watching closely, recognizing that the outcome could shape how future artificial intelligence organizations are structured and held accountable. The growing divide between open and closed artificial intelligence development is also under a microscope here. If OpenAI's transition is validated legally, it signals that mission-driven organizations can pivot commercially without consequence. That precedent could fundamentally change how the next generation of artificial intelligence companies writes its founding documents and makes promises to the public. So what happens when the gavel finally falls? Let's walk through each possible outcome and what it means for everyone involved. If Musk wins, OpenAI faces serious consequences. The court could potentially block or significantly delay its for-profit transition, throwing its restructuring plans and IPO timeline into chaos. Investor confidence would take a major hit, and Musk would emerge as a validated watchdog of AI ethics, boosting the credibility of his own venture, xAI, in the process. If OpenAI wins, it gains powerful legal validation for its structural evolution. The IPO path becomes clearer, and Musk risks looking like a competitor using courtrooms instead of code to slow down a rival. A settlement, perhaps the most likely outcome, would probably involve confidential terms, possibly financial compensation or governance concessions. It would give both sides a controlled exit. But regardless of who wins, the questions this trial has raised about accountability, mission, and power in artificial intelligence will not disappear quietly. At its core, this trial is about far more than two powerful figures fighting over a company. It forces us to confront questions that will shape the next century of human civilization. Who gets to control artificial intelligence? Can profit-driven organizations genuinely serve humanity's best interests? And when idealism collides with capitalism, which one survives? Whatever the verdict, the Musk versus OpenAI battle has already accomplished something significant. It has pulled back the curtain on how AI's most powerful institutions actually operate behind closed doors. The internal tensions, the shifting missions, the billion-dollar partnerships, none of this would have surfaced without this legal fight, forcing transparency into an industry that rarely offers it. As artificial intelligence grows more powerful and more embedded in everyday life, the governance structures surrounding it matter enormously. This trial reminds us that the decisions being made today in boardrooms and courtrooms will echo through generations. The future of AI is being written right now. The question is, who holds the pen?